Hey folks, Carla Sands here, putting in a plug for Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast.
Hi folks, Kent Emmons here, founder and CEO of Crave News. There's a big market for a news network that targets a younger audience by serving up real news in a way that's raw, edgy, and unfiltered. Crave News is about to launch, and this is your opportunity to become a founding shareholder. Get ready to write down this number, and I'll text you a link to more information. Become a founding shareholder in Crave News and own a piece of the next generation of news. Crave News, real news, no BS.
Hi, friends, Gene Valentino, and welcome back for another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast podcast. We have guests on from all walks of life, social, political positions, people coming in from different ways of life. But today I have the privilege of working with Tom Basile right here on the Grassroots Truthcast. And I say it that way because Tom is a colleague of mine, or I should say I'm a colleague of his. He's a regular on Newsmax. He is an anchor with his weekly show entitled America Right Now, which you can see weekly. He's been involved as a TV host, an author, speaker, commentator, private speeches he can make available with you for private organizations. He's been very much involved in some of the biggest and hottest stories around the world. Most recently, he was at the Papal Conclave in Italy, and that came right after the Pope Benedict XVI's death. And now we have in our studio my partner, my colleague, my friend, Tom Basile. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Oh, Gene, it is such a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. And it's I do so much interviewing of people. It's nice to be interviewed. This is great.
It's a change of pace. I feel today, folks, this is going to be sort of brother to brother, be sort of a collaborative effort on our part to get some interesting stories out and do what I hope most others have not done with Tom. Let you in on his background. To understand a person is to understand where they're coming from. And that's what we're doing right after this. Hi, friends, Gene Valentino. I recently had the chance to sit with Ashley Leppert. Ashley's the real deal. A United States Coast Guard helicopter pilot, a recipient of the Air Medal, and a true American hero. Her first book, The Hurricane Within, was an award-winning document, and now shows she's back with volume number 2 called Beyond the Storm. Ashley's courage, faith, and strength of character will inspire you. Visit her website and get the latest updates on her new book and your chance to receive and win a free autographed copy. Check out the QR code down in the corner as well. Thanks for joining us. Hi, friends. Welcome back to my guest, Tom Basile. Tom, thanks for joining us here on Grassroots Truthcast.
It's great to be with you, Gene.
Tom, we talked today.
Ask me anything.
Well, this is a little bit more comfortable for you, I hope. This is not a news anchor worry about going nationwide before millions of people, even though you're used to it. Hey, folks, Tom came out of New England. Well, he came out of New York, and I was over in Connecticut at the time. Served as a town councilman in Sandy Point, New York. He like me, he was an adjunct professor at college. So was I, and he ran. This is what I think our paths are so parallel. He was a candidate for New York State Senate, and I was candidate a few years later for the United States Congress.
Yeah.
I think we both learned something from that experience. And,
Yep.
and fill in the gap.
We all make mistakes.
And before we lose anybody in the audience, throw out a contact, throw out a website, and I want to talk.
Sure.
I want to plug your book at the top here.
Oh, sure. Well, you can find me at tombasile.com, on X, which used to be Twitter, at Tom_Basile, which is Basile, at Instagram, at Tom Basile. And then of course you can find me at Newsmax 9 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday, America Right Now, and at various other times during the course of the week. So
By the way, guys, he's often he's on right before Rita Cosby,
mm,
who has invited me at times to join her. But
yeah,
Tom has been a friend. He's been a colleague, and what I'd consider in the New York in the Newsmax rank out of New York, very judicious, very objective, and balanced in his reporting. We've had several conversations, some in the green room, talking about the issue du jour, and there's 1,000 issues du jour. Tom,
yeah,
we're recording this on Zoom,
yep,
13 days after the assassination
yeah.
of Charlie Kirk. We are the nation will continue to mourn for years his loss. Just a quick recap on that. What does that represent to you, the whole Charlie Kirk issue?
Oh boy. Um, well, first of all, uh, it's been a very emotional couple of weeks. Charlie was a really extraordinary person. And, I followed him from the time he was a teenager and just trying to kind of pull together what ultimately became Turning Point USA. And over the last, I'd say, 4 years, his voice really crystallized. And his blending of facts and biblical truth and the Constitution, and the way that he was able to articulate that through practice and a lot of study, um, to really hone that message for young people all across America was really, really extraordinary. Um, it shows us a couple of different things. One, that somebody who is sort of rightly ordered and rightly prioritizes, and understands what this country is really all about and the promise of America, how much resonance somebody who has that message can really have. How much individuals in this country still can really make a very big difference, because he represents that. He also represents the challenging time that we face as a nation, as Marxism, um, is 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 ascendant in many respects, and is really come out of the closet and feels very emboldened. Socialism and Marxism, and these anti-American ideologies, which excuse political violence, and how incredibly powerful they have become. Um, and then I also think that in the aftermath, I think that conservatives and Americans, pro-freedom Americans, should be very, very proud of how the movement met the moment. This was devastating. The worst political assassination, the highest profile political assassination in nearly 60 years. And there weren't any riots, and nobody burnt down a city. Um, People stood in prayer, they locked arms, and they talked about the greatness of America, and they really epitomized what we can be at times when we need to come together, and they epitomized the strength of this country. And it was actually the last 2 weeks have been very difficult, but they've also, in so many respects, been very inspiring. And I think that Charlie would be very happy at the way that people have responded. The vast majority of Americans have responded to this moment.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Charlie was a leader. Some spoke about him potentially being a good material for president someday.
Yeah,
And I believe that's so. Um, my words, he even spoke eloquently, and I don't think the guy went to college.
he
Yet
didn't.
he took on college students who had no rhyme or reason or logic to their commentary. In fact, they espoused positions that Tom had had no basis in fact, and without
Right.
insulting the person, he with a feather, not a hammer, kind of brought him into his level of think,
Mm,
and I really appreciated that about him. I regret he's dead. but I think the benefit of him passing is that he, with lightning speed, has accelerated a movement that was transitioning. This whole era of the Gen Z crowd, what, 13 to 28, I think, the Gen Z folks, the new voters, the
Yeah.
younger generation,
Yeah.
uh,
And,
80.
and he made an enormous impact, and it's an impact that the left-wing media doesn't want you to think about.
Right.
Certainly, the higher education complex is terrified about. The teachers' unions are terrified about. But these are people that are going to have an impact on our nation and our world for decades to come, and their impact has not been felt yet, and will not be felt for quite some time. I just spoke at an event the other day and had the opportunity to be with some young college students, and these are very impressive folks. And what's so impressive about them is that they are appreciating something that's very difficult for, I think, a lot of adults to really understand, and that is that you know, God gives us the challenge of finding the good in every circumstance, even something as devastating as this atrocity that we all witnessed, happened to Charlie in front of all of those people 2 weeks ago. And they have embraced that there is good that can come from this evil. And they're just really, I think there are so many remarkable people, remarkable young people in this country, and we're going to be hearing from a lot of them because of what Charlie did.
I think one of the most interesting moments in Erica Kirk's speech yesterday, and from our point of view here, was her commentary on forgiving
Hmm.
the criminal, the assassin.
Yeah,
And that's sort of a Christian, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us,
that's right.
is our Christian faith, Lord's Prayer.
Hmm.
And to me, she showed in that moment not only a willingness to perpetuate the energy and the future of Turning Point USA for all of us, but her willingness to perpetuate Charlie's personal dynamic. I can see why the two of them were an excellent couple,
Yeah.
but to me, it better send a message to all of us. Boy, I tell you, I don't know if I could be so strong, Tom. Forgiving the guy who did that, that's a big order. I
Yeah.
just don't know if that's something I'd be
Well, but
able to do. But she did, didn't
if
she?
if we're going to restore the Judeo-Christian principles that are the underpinning of this country and our Constitution, we have to walk the walk, as difficult as that walk is. And that also means doing what Christ did, doing what Charlie did, which is giving everybody an opportunity to realize the realize salvation, and to participate in an American context, all right, in our republic, that is being able to peaceably participate in the discussion about the future of this country and what is going to ultimately lead to the flourishing of the people here. What is going to protect our freedom? What is going to be best for helping people live better lives within the American experience. And that's what these debates on the campus were all about. And that's what welcoming people, not being in just a silo or an echo chamber, but welcoming people in to that conversation was all about. And I hope that I know that we're gonna continue to do that. I think that that's obviously critical to us remaining a free society.
You were talking earlier about behavior. I think I'm in the process of writing a book now entitled "The Art of Bad Behavior," and you touched upon it from there is. It seems to me you talked about the impact of these events recently on America,
Mm.
politics in general. Um, I'd like to focus on that. Something I know we have in common that we've alluded to on various shows has been the deep state.
Yeah,
Uh, Observations of Marxism and socialism that Charlie Kirk talked about are not even understood by some college graduates. They wouldn't know the
yeah,
difference. And what amazes me is that the a number of people who are following this mantra and using it as the excuse to get rid of Trump and everyone around him are using it as a narrative that they don't understand. They don't. So it drives to an issue of the deep state, which we've also talked about. The
mm,
George Soros cabal at various levels of our government, I feel, are an infection, a poison that has fermented over. It didn't just happen. I'm guessing it's over the
sure.
last 20 years. And now we're seeing it come to a head. And I think we caught it on time. Your take.
Yeah, it really has been going on, and this is, shocking to a lot of people because they haven't been thinking in these terms. But the Marxist movement in the United States really started in the 1930s and 40s. And by the 1950s and 60s, it had enough of a plan together where it started then infiltrating first higher education, then the education complex, and had a very and then also our government institutions. So we call this the march through the institutions. Well, the march through the institutions didn't just happen over the last 20 or 25 years. We hear a lot more about it. Since Obama became president, the movement felt like it was mature enough and it had enough financial backing and enough institutions and enough platforms that it controlled where it could start really pushing its agenda a lot more forcibly and a lot more publicly. But it actually started, 60 years ago plus.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time in coming. And when you talk about how these kids in college, they don't really understand, they don't understand these different philosophies. They think socialism is great. They think communism is fine. And that's because they're not actually taught history. They are taught this perversion of history
Yeah.
that either the public school teachers unions, who are left-wingers, they're not just traditional liberals. Many of them, particularly the leadership, they are far left ideologues. Um, and these folks in the higher education complex, these professors, they don't teach what Marxism really is. They don't teach about the Bolshevik Revolution, and they don't teach about the Chinese Cultural Revolution. They
And
don't
why
teach
is
about the
that? Why
human
why is that?
because it is because if you try to teach somebody that we're going to take your property from you
Yeah.
and we are going to have statist control over everything, and you look at the actual history of Marxism, socialism, and fascism, and you realize that Stalin killed 25 million of his own people. The Chinese killed 60 million of their own people. Hitler, who was a real fascist,
Yeah.
Hitler, was responsible for World War II, and responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of people. It's very difficult. It's a tough sell, right? But what you try to explain to what these professors really want to try to do with these folks is say, no, 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 no. This is about people living in harmony. This is about people being cared for. We don't want any kind of we want equal outcomes,
Well,
not
that's
equal
socialism.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they try to sell it to these kids, and they do it by spreading deliberate misinformation because they leave out key components of the history.
DEI keeps everybody on the same level and forces everybody not to want to be motivated to succeed because why work harder than you? We're all going to get the same. And with that mentality, there's a
Yeah.
neutralizing of there's only one person that's different from you, and that's the deep state operatives at the
Right,
top who are working off your your hard work.
right.
Anyway, hey folks, we're talking with Tom Basile. Tom's a author, a columnist, a speaker, commentator, and a colleague of mine. Seen daily on Newsmax. Has his weekend show, America Right Now. Check him out. And Tom, what's your email? What's your website that people can
Sure.
see more about?
TomBasile.com, and you can find me on Instagram at Tom Basile, or on X, which is Twitter, which is at Tom_Basile.
But the bad behavior that you talked about earlier,
Mm.
where'd these folks come from? They weren't around 30 years ago. Rashid Tlaib's recent
Yeah.
outburst with Congressman Byron Donalds. You
Yeah.
have, oh my words. It was just a year ago. Chuck Schumer was telling Gorsuch, Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, that he has unleashed the wrath of God and there will be
hmm
consequences for what he has done in his adjudication of law in the
Mm.
Supreme Court. And
Yeah.
then you've got the antics of AOC and others that continue today to talk about
Yeah.
Trump as a fascist
Yeah.
Nazism. I don't understand where they think they get off doing that. These when I took law courses in college,
hmm
I remember the college professor using the term actionable words are not allowed. They are insightful and therefore they are against the law. When
Mm.
you get in my face, spitting at me and telling me that I'm a fascist, do you not expect me to respond? And you're right, the free speech goes how far, Tom? You and I do it every day on these different media outlets. But how
Yeah.
far do you think they can go, even as our elected officials?
Well, look, there's a difference between incitement of violence, and and name calling and trying to provoke somebody. And
Hi, friends. Gene Valentino. I recently had the chance to sit with Ashley Leopard. Ashley's the real deal, a United States Coast Guard helicopter pilot, a recipient of the Air Medal, and a true American hero. Her first book, The Hurricane Within, was an award winning document and now shows she's back with volume number 2 called Beyond the Storm. Ashley's courage, faith, and strength of character will inspire you. Visit her website and get the latest updates on her new book and your chance to receive and win a free autographed copy. Check out the QR code down in the corner as well. Thanks for joining us.
and you asked where it all came from, right? You have to kind of, and for me, I go back to Marx. I just read what Karl Marx wrote. I read what Lenin wrote or Stalin wrote. I'm a big fan. I always talk about this book called The Naked Communist and the 45 Points of Cleon Skousen. And he wrote that back in the 1950s. One of those points, which is the basically what he laid out was the roadmap. He worked for J. Edgar Hoover at the FBI, and he was investigating communists, and communist groups in the United States, and Marxist groups. And he laid out 45 points that were part of their strategy. Well, one of their strategies is if you disagree with someone, label them a Nazi or a fascist, because those are repugnant terms. Now, even though the authoritarian is behaving like a Nazi or a fascist, you then project that onto your opposition. And so this is just like straight out of the playbook, right? to say that somebody is a racist or somebody's a Nazi or somebody's a fascist. Um, and the Democrats are all doing it. Um, and
Yeah, but they
because they
do not
want to
have I
demonize
don't
people
see
on
their
the
path.
right who support American freedom.
Yeah, but I don't see a pathway for them of success. My problem is I don't understand why they don't see a pathway for success.
Well, the thing that's really striking is that if you go back and you look at a guy like Chuck Schumer, right? The internet is forever. Television is forever. Okay. You go back and you listen to his floor speeches. He, and as well as most of these Democrats, they have done a complete 180 on almost every single solitary issue. And it all comes down to the fact that the funders of the left-wing political ecosystem are all Marxists. These are socialists. The money
Yeah.
in the Democratic Party is all tied up with left-wing people. That's where those are the people who are contributing the money. And these folks, they have absolutely no scruples. They are going
You
to shift further and further and further to the left because that's how they're going to fund their movement.
You have touched on something we don't have time to get into, but I will say these non-government organizations, these
Hmm.
NGOs that have billions of dollars coming in from
Yep.
all over the world, not just the
Yep.
United States, funded 100% of the Democrats in various elections, from the presidency all the way down to Letitia James and even smaller elections at the county and
Hmm.
city level. I cannot believe how one-sided it's been. I cannot believe we have not seen a reaction to it by now. Tom, do you think the Turning Point USA younger generation is going to stop these NGOs and pivot with a more conservative dynamic through various uh, uh, governances at the local, state, and federal level?
Well, look, I mean, I think Trump needs to do more about this. Okay.
Yeah,
You have phony nonprofits who abuse the IRS law. These are people who they claim that they run C3s and they claim they run C4s but at the end of the day, these are very heavily politically oriented groups. They do get involved in advocacy to the point where it does impact elections. They are participating in the election cycle, and many of them are getting government grants. And so you have to investigate these groups. You have to determine whether or not they are engaging in electioneering or some sort of politics. And then you have to stop funding them. And that
yeah,
they get money from state and local governments, but they also get money from the federal government. And the Trump administration and the Congress need to do more because a lot of these groups, I firmly believe, are violating the public charity laws, and
yeah,
they need to be very carefully scrutinized.
yeah. Great book I happen to have right here on my desk here. I keep this handy because I do a lot of reading. This is a gentleman I recommend you check out. His name is Scott Walter, and he wrote the book
Hmm.
Arabella.
Yeah.
There's three faces: Bill Gates, George Soros in the center, and Mark Zuckerberg on the side.
Oh my.
And the subtitle is "The Dark Money Network of Leftist Billionaires Secretly Transforming America."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Look, think
th
about these people. Mark Zuckerberg put $400 million into defeating Donald Trump. He called it
yeah,
voter awareness, and to help with deployment, to help with voter access during the 2020 campaign during the pandemic. His foundation put $400 million. Bill Gates Bill Gates is another dude. He's involved in all of these various left-wing causes that are going to be transformative. The big thing that he's into now, of course, is AI. Gates very flippantly earlier this year was very chilling. He just very matter-of-factly said, "Yeah, we're all going to be replaced by robots. We're going to be replaced by AI." And of course, people will want to see real humans do certain things like play baseball. You're going to want to see people, professional baseball players, play baseball. And, you think about the arrogance of these people who don't care if their platform eviscerates the livelihoods of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. And that's what they're preparing to do, all of these guys. Um,
Folks, we're talking with
yeah.
Tom Basile, anchor, host, very good author, father of two, I believe, and
Three.
of three. Okay, yeah,
Three.
I missed one. A father of three and a great husband. Comes from the New York area and made an attempt for the state senate in New York. And has done great. Hey, talk a little bit about your book, uh, the tough sell fighting the media war in Iraq.
Yeah, well, I served in the Bush administration, and I had the privilege of going and serving as a civilian advisor to the coalition government in Baghdad in 2003 and 2004, and I was handling strategic communications, and got a chance to see and be a part of the daily pitched battle with the media, and the administration, and trying to articulate our foreign policy during the war on terrorism, and to do it in a way that gave the sufficient credit to our country and what we were trying to do there, and of course our men and women in uniform, and the civilians who were sacrificing so much for the sake of attempting to give the people of Iraq a chance at freedom, and to fight the Islamofascists and the terrorists that we were up against. And so the book goes through um, the as a civilian, the day-to-day uh struggle with the press, and this is just traditional media to try to get our message across to the American people and to the rest of the world, and the bias and the editorial filter that we faced at every single turn, but also the challenges of trying to navigate an aggressive communications operation when you have competing interests within the government itself, at the White House, at the State Department, at the NSC, at the Defense Department, um, and how those combined to make the Iraq mission, today really perceived as, unfortunately, a failure, when because it was not communicated effectively, or aggressively enough to the American people.
Tom, how do you compare Iraq's policy positions under the Bush administration then when you were on staff to what you see now going on with President Trump? Is there a difference or a distinction in approaches maybe between the two?
I think that Trump is very much aware that if you're going to go in militarily, you have to kind of go in all the way. And this is, I think, what his struggle is with respect to Putin and Ukraine, because he
Yeah,
wants to
and
end the war. He understands that Putin is just kind of walking all over everybody at this point. But there is this struggle. When you're the president of the United States, you cannot get mired in a conflict because you're not willing to use the right resources, and you're not willing to use the right number of troops, and you're not willing to use the technology and the weapons that you have sufficiently. And this was the problem in Iraq and Afghanistan.
well,
That
I submit he's having the same frustration over Israel and Hamas.
Yeah,
On
except I think that um,
That's right.
Benjamin Netanyahu is taking a
The fall.
decidedly tougher approach,
Yeah.
which is what I would expect the Israelis to do, and I give him a lot of credit. I mean, if you're going so basically, essentially, it is, if you're going to do something, you have to do it all the way,
Yeah, no
and
half measures. I agree completely.
exactly.
I thought it was an interesting comparison. Here he is this morning speaking to the United Nations.
Yeah.
He couldn't get a teleprompter to work or the escalator, and, and he and he's saying, "You guys are supposed to be fixing these world events, not
Yeah.
me."
Yeah.
And he put it right back in their face. Hamas and Israel, Iran, excuse me, is Russia and Russia and
Ukraine.
Ukraine as well.
Yeah.
So, Tom, in the last 5 minutes we have, is there
Yeah.
something you'd like to focus on, either from a policy position, not a reporter position?
Mm.
If you were an elected official, not a Newsmax commentator, where would you take the nation, like to see the nation go?
Well, I think that we need to focus on, I mean, there are a lot of different things, but I think that we need to focus on an opportunity society, a true opportunity society. And and that means a restoration of federalism, where you devolve power away from Washington, you give it back to the states. Um, and we've gotten so addicted to welfare in this country, so addicted to these government programs that people get locked into generational dependency. And then we have huge swaths of the population who are essentially a permanent underclass. And we need to do something about that.
That's right.
We need to really give people the opportunity to live the American dream. You know, the Democrats, they opened the border, they put all these people in here. 70% of them, if they stay, they're never going to get out and off of welfare. That's
Yeah,
not America. And if you want this country to grow and you want to be able to keep costs down, you have to give people the opportunity to earn their own wealth. And I think that we've gotten away from that in this society. And people aren't even, our young people in these failing public schools aren't even taught that that's what America, that hard work and doing things, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and doing things on your own without government intervention is really what America is supposed to be all about. That's what made America great. And
and
we need to chip away from that, and we need to start getting back to that.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk talked about that. I mean, going all
Hmm.
the way back to Aristotle and Plato. Plato,
Mm.
you had an argument between Aristotle and Plato that talked about, no, we're going to take the opportunity away from you, including land and property rights. Um, and the other said, no, it is owned by the state. We control everything. But it was Aristotle that says, no, you've got a problem here. If you do that, individuals will not be motivated to
Hmm.
grow and create a force an economy, and you lose your individuality. That's
Yep.
what we're on the cusp of repeating.
And
I
that goes back
regret,
to Marxism, Gene.
yeah,
Right?
that's
That comes full circle back to what Marx envisioned in terms of how the society should be structured. There would be no private property rights. You
that's
would
right.
be you would be controlled by the state, and so it that is what we are seeing in a guy like Mondami in New York and these other socialists that are coming up through the Democratic Party. That's what they want.
Hey, who's your pick for mayor in New York City? Okay, I'll
I
take you off the hook.
honestly, I'd pick Eric Adams.
Okay.
I would pick Eric Adams over Andrew Cuomo is a demon,
Oh
and
yeah.
I lived under his reign during COVID, um, and uh, and Adams, not the greatest mayor in the world. He's got some problems, but you certainly don't want the socialist and the guy that shoved everybody back into the nursing homes and killed 10,000 people during the
Right.
pandemic and shut down all the churches and the schools.
Let's see
I
if
don't,
they
I don't,
forget.
yeah, I'm not sure that I'd want him to be mayor either. But if you know, if it were me, I would have loved to have seen Mondami versus Adams, and I think that Adams actually could have won that race.
Okay, can I throw my 2 cents in?
Sure.
I pick Curtis Sliwell,
Oh
and
God.
And I know he doesn't stand a chance today, but
Yeah,
there's only one guy that can save him if he gets the endorsement from Donald Trump.
yeah,
Might take it over the top, and the
yeah.
4 million Jews in the Democrat Party just might say, well, uh, we hate Trump and his personality, and he's not part of the democratic culture of New York. But
Hmm.
just maybe, Curtis might be able to turn the tide on this thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's a native. He goes back. He was fighting people in those subways when the rest of them were.
Look, I totally agree. But I've had my own run-ins with Curtis Sliwa, and I think that
Oh, you
I kind
did?
of agree
Okay.
with the president, and because I don't think the president believes that Curtis is a serious person, and I happen to know that he's not really a conservative.
Oh,
So I don't think you're going to look, anybody would be better than the socialist. All right, that we
well,
have
I
a
stand corrected.
you know.
If you're correct, there's more to learn about Curtis. Admittedly, I know less
Yeah.
than I normally do. But boy, what a distinction what a cast of characters is what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
folks.
yeah,
We're
and
almost
it's
out
just
of time,
unfortunately
Tom.
we've
I
got this Islamofascist, socialist, and anti-Semite who, right now, if you believe the polls, right now, I mean, he's going to be the mayor of the biggest city in the country.
Well, there's a saying, sometimes things have to get worse before they get better.
That is very
Uh,
true.
Maybe that's the slap in the face New York finally needs, and with it
Uh,
comes major reformation. I was hoping, uh, I was hoping not. I was hoping someone like Curtis could come along and renovate and rectify the situation. But if they want socialism and communism, boy, they're getting it with a double dose.
yeah, it has the potential to be a tough few years in New York if he wins. And the biggest issue, Gene, that you're going to see is, and it's not just about the state-run grocery stores and all this other, the city-run grocery stores and this other nonsense that he wants to do. And he wants to do race-based property taxes and all
Oh
sorts of other
God.
crap. The New York City Police Department, which is the finest police department in the world, um, you will see mass um, retirements, mass
Oh,
resignations. They will not be able to recruit, and the effectiveness of that police department, which keeps that city safe, is going to be significantly degraded if he
well,
becomes the mayor.
there'll be a collapse on the financial system finally because the annuitization of those retirement accounts will just bleed the city dry if all of them are retiring at the same time.
Mm,
It'll be significant. Hey,
yeah.
folks, we're talking with Tom Basile, friend of mine, active participant with Newsmax, news columnist, author, writer, father, husband. He's been involved in things both domestically within the United States and overseas on several news fronts. I'm proud to say I'm a collaborator with him and a contributor with him at Newsmax, and couldn't be happier to have met him in that environment not less than a year ago. Tom, any parting thoughts you'd like to leave with the folks?
Yeah, look, just this is a challenging time for our country, and we have to understand what the domestic threats are to our freedom and our security, and we have to double down on teaching our children and what the American experience is really supposed to be all about, and try to resist the temptation to sink to the level of some of our friends and neighbors who celebrate violence and cancel culture and are they who want a much more caustic environment and like we've seen. So resist the temptation to sink to their level and continue to be happy warriors for American freedom.
American freedom only comes when you defend the rights of others. And I've got a favorite saying I've often used: failure to defend the rights of others may someday result in your rights not being defended.
That's right.
Tom Basile, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Gene. It's a real pleasure.
This has been a real pleasure. And how do they reach you on your website and again?
TomBasile.com or on Instagram at Tom Basile.
Thanks again, Tom. And
Thank you.
thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us again for another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. Share the episode. See you soon.
Hi folks, Kent Emmons here, founder and CEO of Crave News. There's a big market for a news network that targets a younger audience by serving up real news in a way that's raw, edgy, and unfiltered. Crave News is about to launch, and this is your opportunity to become a founding shareholder. Get ready to write down this number, and I'll text you a link to more information. Become a founding shareholder in Crave News and own a piece of the next generation of news. Crave News, real news, no BS.